Here are some tips you should follow when weaving. Maintain the rod at a uniform pitch, interval, not too large, not too small. Too large a pitch could result in defective welding on parts over which the rod failed to pass. Too small a pitch could cause the plate to overheat, resulting in a rough-shaped bead. Manipulate the rod a little faster for the section between the weld toes, but move it slightly more slowly or stop it briefly at the weld toes. Maintain a constant weave width, up to about 3 times the core wire's diameter. Here we'll also show you an example of weaving bead joining. Crater treatment is conducted at the bead end. Here is a completed weaving bead. Welding the fillet of a joint consisting of 2 base metals coming into contact with each other in a T-shape is known as fillet welding. Fillet welding is a frequently used joint type, so you should accustom yourself to it. Prepare 2 steel plates for practice and a 4mm diameter welding rod of the ilmenite type, and set the welding current at approximately 180 amps. Begin the arc about 20mm inside of the weld seam start point and return it to the start point while making the arc somewhat longer. As soon as the arc returns to the start point, deposit a stringer bead by letting the rod tip lightly touch the corner of the base metals. Do not change the rod holding angle during this process. However, when slag on the pool appears to move ahead of the rod, tilt the rod towards the direction of movement and use the force of the arc to push the slag backwards. Most importantly, make sure you're carefully observing the pool. Once the bead has been deposited, remove the slag and examine the bead's appearance. Undercuts found at the weld toe on the vertical plate side can be attributed to causes such as too high a welding current, an error in the rod holding angle, excessively fast rod manipulation, and lack of arc length uniformity. Now check the horizontal plate. Overlapping is a defect frequently encountered on the horizontal plate side during horizontal fillet welding. Overlapping means that the deposited metal has not fused with the base metal, but merely lies on top of it. Causes include excessively low welding current and slow rod manipulation. When inspecting fillet position welding, the most important point is whether or not the fillet weld legs are uniform. In most cases, the cause of irregular fillet weld legs is a welding rod held at an improper angle. The rod holding angles suggested previously serve as a yardstick for proper welding. As you accumulate practice with fillet weld legs, you're encouraged to find the rod holding angles that work best for you. When you want to deposit a bead of greater weld leg in horizontal fillet welding, you can use either the multi-pass welding technique or the weave welding technique. Conduct more than one pass if the required fillet weld leg is relatively large, because weaving will not suffice. Regardless of the technique used, fillet weld leg should be uniform in length, and good care should be taken to avoid undercuts, overlaps, and mixing of slag with deposited metal. While flat position welding is the basis for most welding operations, sometimes the welder has to work in other, more unnatural positions. As an example, practice vertical position welding here. Compared with the flat position, the motion required for vertical position welding makes your arms tire more rapidly. It's essential then you adopt a posture that minimizes the burden on your arms. Fix the practice plate so that its end point is lower than your horizontal line of sight. Doing so will allow you to observe the pull for the duration of the welding process. Place your body either in front of the weld seam or slightly to the left if you are right-handed. If you are to work while seated, open your knees wide and take care to keep your right hand from coming into contact with your knee. In either case, keep your elbow away from your side so that the motion of your arm is not impeded. Two techniques are used for vertical welding: the common upward welding and downhill welding. Following are some tips for upward welding. Prepare steel plates of a moderate size and fix them to the jig so that their upper end is lower than your horizontal line of sight. Select a welding rod with a diameter of 4 mm and attach it to the rod holder at an angle of 120 degrees. Set the electric current to 120 amps and find an optimum value as you accumulate practice. After generating an arc at the lower end of the practice plate, use a relatively longer arc and wait until the arc is stabilized before proceeding. Once the arc has stabilized sufficiently, shorten its length to about 3 mm and move the rod straight upward. Hold the welding rod at an angle of 45 degrees to both base metals. The key point here is to strike, as if you were spraying,